Tonight we're talking about neurological based chiropractic. Neurological based chiropractic. NBC, not the network. So when we're talking about neurological based chiropractic, we really talk about how does the brain adapt. The brain's ability to adapt determines everything. We're talking everything. If you can't adapt correctly, that's how you get any dysfunction, any disease, any problem. Your ability to take in information and adapt correctly is the determinant of how healthy you are. In our office, we have a protocol, and the product that we use is called NeuroInfinity. And what this product does is it will actually read your brain's ability to adapt. Through this product, we have the ability to do a functional EEG. That means we can actually scan your brain under stress, and through that see how you adapt to that stress. If you have a normal adaptation process, then we know you're healthy. If you have the right ratios of brain waves, then we know we're healthy. That's one aspect. Then we can look at right and left brain function. The next thing this machine does is it gives me the ability to look at, do you have heart rate variability? That's a big way for saying, can you slow down your stress levels? Can you be stressed very highly and put on the brakes quickly? If you have a high heart rate variability, it means you can deal with a lot of stress and have no physical, emotional, or chemical ailments. Heart rate variability is a direct correlation to how healthy you'll be. The higher the heart rate variability, the longer you'll live. Unless you do something like get hit by a bus or something. That's I can't stop that. The next one we look at is heart rate itself. Is the heart rate vary? Does it change? Then we also look at skin conductance, which is how sweaty your palms are or your hands are. We also look at respiration rate, and we'll also look at muscle tone. All of these tests have specific reasons for why they're being done. They tell me how stressed your body is. If your body is stressed, you will have an adaptation in your brain waves. You have an adaptation in your heart rate variability. You have an adaptation in your respiration rate, your skin conductance, and so forth, muscle tone, and so forth. So this test actually tells me in live time how healthy you are and if you're going to get a problem. Now, it doesn't tell me where the problem is going to be, because that's what you guys have the fun thing of doing, is you guys get to determine where you're going to have the issue. And why that happens is because each person deals with stress differently. So how we've been taught how to adapt deals with how we get sick. So what we're really looking at is how the brain takes in information and disperses it. So the information will actually come up through the spinal cord, and these are the two lobes of the brain, and be dispersed. And what happens is, stress is stimulation. The brain needs three things to be healthy. It needs glucose, it needs oxygen, and it needs stimulation. Those are the three things the brain needs to stay healthy and stay happy. If it doesn't get enough stimulation, I'll give you an example, you'll have seizures. If it gets too much stimulation in a low age, then you'll have an adaptation process. One of those adaptation processes is called ADD. That means you turn your brain and put it into a theta dominant state where you fall asleep. And so your brain's literally turning itself off to be in a stress state so it protects itself. If you say have too much stimulation when you're young and you can't adapt correctly, then you'll give yourself ADD, which means that you're hypervigilant, and if anything walks by you get distracted. These are all adaptation states from the brain. The brain, if it's simplistically, I can tell you this, the brain causes everything in the body, including disease. Your brain is causing your problem. If you have a problem, high blood pressure, low blood pressure, thyroid problems, liver problems, heart problems, diabetes, heart disease, anything you watch on television and anything in that DSM, or the diagnostic criteria book that medical physicians use, is caused by a brain dysfunction. You grow these things. So what happens is this. Stimulation will come up, and depending on your ability to adapt, gets pushed to the right place. And when it gets put to the right place, you adapt correctly. The information comes in, then your brain goes, okay, that's what that means, and then adapts correctly and gives you a good signal out. That's normal. What makes a disease is if your processor or your CPU, your brain, can't process all the information that's brought in correctly, and it sends it to the wrong place. And when you send it to the wrong place, you make a new neural pathway, and that neural pathway is a maladaptive pathway, and if it runs long enough, that's how you get a disease. So your inability to adapt is what causes the disease. So the statement, stress kills, is not true. The inability to adapt to stress kills. Because you can have two people in the same environment, like Chernobyl, they're exposed to a huge chemical stress, and they'll be in the same place, and one of them will get cancer and the other one won't. So what happened there? One had a higher adaptation, their brain was able to adapt quicker to the stress, and therefore your brain made your body adapt correctly, and the other one didn't. And they couldn't adapt, and then they grew a dysfunction. So the inability to adapt or put the information into the right part determines if you get healthy or sick. If you put it in the right part, good information in, good information out. Because you've heard this from computers. Bad information in, bad information out. Same thing happens with the brain. If you put in a signal, and the signal gets put to, let's say, you're in a stress response. And the stress response is very simple. You get into a sympathetic tone or defensive posture. And if you get stuck in that state long enough, you'll have tight hip flexors, tight hamstrings, tight calves. That's what causes low back pain, because your body's trying to do this and you're trying to stand up. So it literally pulls you forward, and that's a chronic stress issue. People who have these for long periods of times then get every single bowel problem, because it takes all the energy away from your gut and it shunts it all away, and your bowel won't work correctly. So you'll get, you name the bowel problems, Crohn's, irritable bowel, all these things are all because the body says, we don't need to use energy for long term right now, we have to protect ourselves. So it shunts all the energy away from there. And the other major thing that's used in shunted away, or energy taken away from, is reproduction. So if you have things like the cysts, bad menstrual periods, all these different things, it's because your body is in such a state of stress, it literally says, we don't need to reproduce, let's take the energy somewhere else so we can run away from the lion. This is chronic stress, and we'll see people come in and they're hunched over, and I'm like, okay, well that's easy to understand what's going on there. But if you just meet people and with their chronic stress pattern, you can literally do something as easy as shaking their hand, and through shaking their hand, know what their issues are. Because shaking their hand will tell me two major indicators. Are they sweaty or not sweaty, and are their hands cold or hot? If their hands are sweaty, they're in acute stress. If they're dry, they've been in a prolonged stress. Usually people with long, prolonged stresses, and they're dry, it usually is a big stress. And 50% of the time it's usually an emotional stress that causes this. And we'll see these protocols, and it just goes down, and you can read in Guyton's textbook the stress response, and it's your stress response staying on that gets you sick. So I went down a little leeway there, but to get back to this brain. So we communicate, and this information here on the red was supposed to go here, but it went here. And now you have a new loop. And each time that new stimulation comes in, it's processed by the wrong part of the brain, and you produce the wrong outcome. And the wrong outcome is what causes disease. So what do we need to do? We need to make your CPU or your processor or your adaptability generator better. So how do we do that with neurological based chiropractic? We use multiple modalities. There are two ways to increase the ability for you to adapt. One of them is the adjustment, and the other one is neurofeedback. Both of them will actually produce new neural pathways. So that means when I adjust you, it's basically like a reboot, and it causes the brain to go, is this all working correctly? Nope, this pathway is wrong. Let's cause it to start adapt, so it'll adapt correctly. The problem comes in is that we live in a stressful environment. So we drive down the road, somebody does something, cuts us off, or somebody yells at us, or all these different things, and we get stressed out, and by getting stressed out, it causes us to flip back to old adaptive processes. Well, guess what that old adaptive process was? Going to the wrong side, causing your issue. So what we need to do is ingrain the new adaptation process. And the new adaptation process allows you to heal. So how do we do this? This is the best explanation I can give you. The adjustment is a pattern interrupt. Your pattern is what made you sick. If we can interrupt the pattern and make a new one, then we can get you healthy. Now people go, well, what does sick mean? You tell me your problem and I can say it's a bad brain function. Literally anything. Cancer, heart disease, diabetes, low back pain, irritable bowel, what's the new stuff? ADD, ADHD. All these things that we have medications, they're treating the downstream effect. The downstream effect of a faulty processor in the brain is a disease. Because you're literally every day creating new tissue, and if you create it by having the wrong process, you don't adapt correctly. And I'll give you an example of this. I have a lady who came in here, and she has had uterine cancer 6 times. Here's my question. How can you keep getting uterine cancer when she doesn't have a uterus? Because after the first time she got cancer, they took the uterus away. And she kept getting the cancer in the exact same spot. So there's nothing to cut out because it's gone. There's nothing there but empty space, and it kept going into the exact same place. So the faulty signal kept growing the cancer over and over and over and over and over again. So unless we break that signal pattern by adjusting and retraining the brain, it'll keep coming back. Because you can cut the piece out, but the signal still doesn't work. That's why people can have gallbladder attacks. You cut their gallbladder out, and they'll still have gallbladder attacks. Because the problem is not the gallbladder, the problem is the signal coming from the brain. And when the brain communicates correctly, then you'll heal. So my job is to literally upgrade the CPU or the brain by adjusting you, making new neural connections. The other thing we can do is called neural feedback. What that is a way to train your brain to be in the right healing state. So what I'm going to talk about now is brain frequencies. So we can go through all of them if you want, but the major ones, so we got gamma, beta, alpha, theta, delta. The major frequencies, and then right in here in the low part of gamma is SMR, sensor motor rhythm. Now this is interesting because this is what neurological based chiropractors have actually figured out, is that on the part of the brain, right in the middle here, there's a sensory motor strip, and it's what defrags your brain, or takes the information during the day and sends it to different areas. So it literally takes all the information in and causes you to push it out into the right areas of the brain. If it doesn't work right and you get overwhelmed, then you'll start sending the information to the wrong places like we were talking about earlier, and that's how you get dysfunction. So in neurological based chiropractic, we start a lot of people off on SMR just so they can process correctly. Now these frequencies literally determine how your brain works, how you heal, how your functionality is. Each one is used for a different thing. Beta by itself is used for high energy consumption and a high ability for the body to work correctly under stress. You need high beta to be able to deal with stressful environments and think quickly. That's what beta is. You will not heal in beta. It's impossible. Because beta is high energy consumption. If you have a high beta function and you don't have the other ones at the right ratios, you'll start getting problems. Now the ratios you want this at is beta. You want to have 32% of your total brain function is beta function. SMR, that's brain defrag. You want that between 5 to 10%. Alpha, 22%. Theta, 20%. And then delta and gamma take up the rest. So those are 5 to 10s as well. But the major function of everything you want to have are these functions right here. Gamma functions are the high aha moments, the epiphany moments. That's what a gamma is. Delta is deep, deep sleep. You can't think there. Consciousness is beta, alpha, and this is semi-conscious. That's when you're groggy, you're half awake, half asleep. That's theta. These functions determine how healthy your brain is. If you're at these proportionate ratios, you will be healthy. If you're not, and one's higher than the other, then we'll see specific dysfunctions. Now, the majority of the US have this function, too much beta. A lot of people that I have come in here, and they have tight muscles, heart issues, liver issues, kidney issues, digestive issues, their beta is between 35 to 50% of their total brain function. So that means they're spending most of their time in high stress and high energy consumption. Because remember, the brain needs oxygen, sugar, and stimuli. Now this is what happens when you have high beta function. You have to get sugar. Where are you going to get it? You're not eating all the time. You can get it from your liver. You can do what's called gluconeogenesis. Now your liver keeps producing the sugar, but then you also have too much sugar floating around because you're producing it, so you got to reabsorb it. That's what the pancreas does, produces insulin. So in a high beta function, your liver and your pancreas are always on. Well, geez, why do you think we're getting type 2 diabetes? We have high stress, we're constantly using our pancreas, and we're burning it out because we're always using more sugar to make our brain work. It's not because we're drinking pop every 25 minutes, because nobody does that. If they do, their teeth are completely rotten. I actually watched a video on that. It was pretty crazy. But high beta function is the cause of most dysfunction in our country. 90% of the people I see have high beta function, and that's why they cannot sleep or relax. But you go, well, if they have high beta function, doesn't it cause linear thinking of this causes that? No. You have high beta function, and then your brain short circuits, and however it short circuits determines your disease. So if it short circuits where you have tight hip flexors, then you have low back pain. If it short circuits where, well, none of my body really gives out, but my brain just can't shut off, then you get anxiety. Maybe it goes there long enough and you start getting depression. These are all systematic functions of this being too high. Maybe this is actually backwards and it doesn't react correctly. That's called ADHD. You're hypervigilant. Maybe it short circuits and you want to shut your brain off because you as a young child learn to literally turn your brain into sleep. Then this is too high. It's all a brain functional issue. So if we can change the ratios, we can literally watch ADD go away, ADHD, depression, anxiety, you name the stuff, we watch it go away. Because it's about changing the CPU or the computer, not changing the program. The program is the disease. So well, let's put it another way. It's about changing how you communicate, and then the program works correctly. And if it works correctly, you heal. And here's the problem. People have been taught to think of downstream issues. So instead of thinking about where the problem is, they've been taught, well, my symptom's here, doc, or my symptom's here, or I have this problem here. That's because you've been growing that issue for years. That dysfunction and maladaptation has grown the problem. So what do I have to do? I literally have to come in and get your brain to balance at the right ratios and the right hemispheres. Now, how do we do that? The adjustment interrupts the loop, causes new neural connections, and then we put you on something called Mindtap or BrainTap. And what that is a way to exercise that new loop. And how that works is the program uses light pulsations, and as it states in the brochure, it balances your brain waves to turn on the mental power. It also uses biorhythmic beats, creates brain to come into a state of relaxation. Auricular therapy, which actually communicates through the brain, creates subliminal feelings, sensations of balance, and actually balances you. It uses holographic music, which delights and calms the mind, as they state, as well as guided visualization. So it uses these 5 technologies, and simplistically, it actually trains you to stay in the new pathway. And when you stay in the pathway and you keep causing it to fire correctly, and we get you balanced, then miracles happen. And they're not really miracles, it's simple. If this works right, you get good stuff out. If it doesn't work right, you get weird stuff out. That's why we can see anything in here, and when you get this working better, your body heals. Now, another facet to this is, that's just the neurological aspect. We also have the sympathetic, parasympathetic aspect. So the relaxation aspect. Most people, well, not even most, 90% of people, probably 95% of people, are in such a state of stress that that's what's causing their problem. And when I say stress, they think of only mental stuff. Well, I'm not angry at anybody, so it doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with that. As we have on my machine, Johns Hopkins University did a study. And they literally put people on a stress test. These people would say they felt perfectly fine, and their blood pressure was literally going off the chart. So how you feel has no indication of how healthy you are. Because how you feel does not determine the brain function. All people who come in, and they'll feel perfectly healthy, and they're literally having high blood pressure, and they have no clue that's going on. The feeling does not indicate health at all. It's the underlying functionality. So the things that we commonly look at is, can you breathe? Because breathing does heart rate variability. It turns on the brakes. And heart rate variability is your ability to simplistically turn the brakes on and slow your body down. Slow your body down. What system is that? Parasympathetic. Most people cannot turn on their parasympathetic, so the relaxation. They can't put the brakes on. And if you can't put the brakes on, you run your body out and you get sick. Now, does sick mean disease? Yeah. Does sick mean mental disorders? Yeah. Sick means not functioning right, problem. That's why the founder of my profession said there is one cause to all disease and one cure. It is the brain. He didn't say the brain, he said there's this one cause and one cure. And the answer is the brain. And it's not about thinking good and having positive affirmations. This is all subconscious. Now, those things will help you because they'll help you calm down your sympathetics. It'll help you feel under more control. But our goal is to actually train you how to calm that down naturally. And how we do that is we have many different faculties, but basically we train you how to warm your hands correctly, so it causes your body to get into a parasympathetic relaxation. We train you on how to breathe correctly, so you can get that parasympathetic turned on. We train you on heart rate variability, which is turning those brakes on. We also train you on a couple other modalities that will actually train you how to step down these cycles correctly and step back up. Because when you want to fall asleep, you're supposed to go from beta to alpha to theta to delta. And when you come out, you're supposed to go this way too. And if you don't do it, problems happen, because you will not process the information correctly. So through making new neural connections, ingraining them with Mindtap, as well as doing bio and neurofeedback, we get you to balance your body. When you balance your body, then your issues go away. But the problem is, in our country, we've been taught to look at a symptom. I can't do anything for symptoms. Your brain does everything. If I can get your brain to work right, your brain can balance your body and cause it to regrow itself correctly. Because a lot of people have had a malfunctioning brain function, so it doesn't integrate correctly, for 30, 40, 50, 60 years, and they come in and say, oh, my pain hurts, or oh, my bowels hurt, or this doesn't work and that doesn't work. To grow that dysfunction takes years. And if you go with symptom treaters, they'll drug the nerve so it won't communicate correctly, and then you still don't get the right information, but you can't feel it, so you feel better. Or they'll cut it out. Either way, you're still not going to feel it. But remember the cancer lady I was talking about? She doesn't have a uterus, but she still keeps getting cancer. How is that possible? The brain's still creating it. So we can turn the nerve off, but we'll keep causing the problem because we haven't fixed the upstream cause. If we take care of the brain, the downstream issues go away eventually. But if we focus on the downstream problems and never take care of the upstream issue, nothing's gonna get better. And that's why we see lots of people that go to symptom treaters and they don't get better. Their symptoms may go away, but then they keep getting on more and more drugs and sicker and sicker and sicker. But I feel okay. That's the big difference, is if we understand that changing the way we integrate information will change our whole body, then we heal. That's the goal of neurological based chiropractic, is to change your integration, upgrade your CPU, make it work quicker. And we've seen this. We've seen that when you take a person out of stress, their IQ increases. When you take a person out of stress, their emotional stability increases. So what does that mean? They don't yell at their husband or wife anymore. They can get raises at work. They don't get stressed out as easily. Because when you increase your ability to deal with stress, you can deal with more and not get overwhelmed. That's what chiropractic does. That's what neurological based chiropractic does. We're not structurally looking at bones. I don't care about bones. I care about how the brain talks to the body and how the body talks back to the brain. The bone is something else. It's not what we're about. So if you can get the body back to those states, it'll heal. And that's why in my office we say miracles happen in here. Because when we change you and change you to the fact of being able to relax and have a properly functioning brain, we see IQs increase, we see grade point averages increase, we see people get raises, we see people do better in sports. All of these are a byproduct of your body functioning correctly. Correct function is the key for any neurological based chiropractor. Do you guys have any questions? No? Cool. Thank you. I might have rambled on a little, but thank you guys.